Hi there, friends. Welcome to episode 2 of Learn to Design, Then Knit. I'm Megan of the Unapologetic Knitter, and I'm a tech editor, and this is my forever free resource for you to learn how to design and then knit your very own raglan summer top. So last week we talked a little bit about general designs, things that we wanted to look for in our summer top, and we talked about swatching. And before I move forward with today, I just want to talk about a question that came up in the comments last week. It was only one question, but it was a great question that I don't think I discussed. So we all have our preferences for the density of fabric that we want to wear on our body in a garment. For a summer top, I like to go a lot lighter, which means holier, lacier, lighter. There's a whole bunch of words I suppose you could ascribe to it, but basically I'm not looking to create a dense fabric like I would for a sweater in the winter, but rather something that's going to allow for a little more air movement and that just floats a little bit differently. So the question was just in regards to what gauge I worked to. So on my swatch for my sample garment, this is the fabric that I created. It's pretty light. You can see when I hold it up to the light that you can see through it a little bit. So I achieved a gauge of 19 stitches over 4 inches. Depending on the fabric that you choose and the actual yarn that you use, you may find that 19 inches is too loose a fabric for your preference or too dense. So I would say aim for that perhaps as a jumping off point if you just don't know where to start. 19 or 20 stitches over 4 inches with a fingering weight yarn, but then play around. See what fabric gets you excited, makes you go, ooh, yeah, I know what to wear that with. That's really where I wanted to start with that. So today we are going to be talking about measuring our bodies and considering the amount of ease that we want to have in our garment. I'm going to be really honest with you. My body goes through a lot of changes throughout the course of the year, and as we're coming off of the winter, I'm definitely at my more plush body shape right now. So the measurements that I had on my example drawing last week are not necessarily going to hold true based on the measurements that I took to show you how I measure my own body. So we're going to have some real talk about bodies, or more specifically my body. And we're going to look at how to apply some ease to those measurements so that we can get the garment to fit the way we want it to. So let's start out by taking our measurements. In this video, I'm going to show you how I measure my chest circumference and how I measure my upper arm circumference as someone who doesn't have someone at home to help them measure all the time. And then I'm going to direct you to a second video in my Knit Talk podcast to look at how to measure your yoke depth for the raglan style that you want. To measure our full chest and upper arm circumference, we're going to want to use a flexible tape measure or a sewist's tape measure. We're going to be measuring the full circumference of our chest, meaning the widest part of our upper body. Just be sure that you're not using your bra size, if you wear a bra, to determine this measurement. That measurement is often is, as far as I know, always the band size. So that's an under breast measurement. We want to be measuring the widest part of our chest. And for folks who don't wear bras, the same method is going to apply. We are going to wrap our tape measure around our bodies at the widest part as possible, so around the deepest part of our chest and across the widest part of our back to the best of our abilities. This is always easier when done with a partner, but if you're on your own, this is just how you go about it. So I am going to try to overlap the two ends of my tape measure as best I can while keeping my arms down. If you raise your arms or you stand in a way that you wouldn't normally stand, you're going to get a different measurement. So you want to try and stand as relaxed and natural as you typically would, and look for where your tape measure overlaps the tip. For me, it looks like it's about 42 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to call that my full chest circumference. We're going to do something very, very similar for our upper arm circumference, but this is extra tricky if you don't have anyone to help you, so go slow. So what I like to do is stick the tape under my arm, right up to my armpit, and then clamp my arm down on it. This is going to act as a bit of an extra hand because we can't use this one. So we're going to reach around, grab that tape measure, keep it up nice and high so it's at the widest part of our upper arm. And then before we take this measurement, we want to make sure that we put our arm flat against our body. I'm trying to show this so you can see it in the best light. We want to put it flat against our body so we get what we call the upper arm spread. If our arm is lifted away from our body, the shape of our arm changes and it can narrow out a little bit. So we want to push it against our body so we get the most flat that we can against our body, which will make the upper arm expand to its widest, and then take our measurement. And I can feel this overlapping at roughly 15 1/4 inches. Okay, so now that we've taken a look at how I measure my chest circumference and my upper arm circumference, please go check out episode 65 of my Knit Talk with a Podcast episode, which is linked in the description below. And that's going to walk you through the steps on how you can measure your own yoke by yourself at home with no one else to help you to make sure that your raglan depth is accurate to how you want it to fit. In that episode, I show you how different amounts of ease, both in length and circumference, will fit differently on your body. So definitely go give that a check out. It's going to give you the best guidance and information that you can use to make sure that the length of your garment in the yoke is correct. Now let's talk a little bit about other measurements that you may want to take when you're considering designing your garment. The first is going to be what you want the body length to be. Just like when we decide on the density of the fabric that we want our garment to be, the length we want it to be from the underarms to the bottom hem is going to differ for everybody. I happen to know that I really enjoy, for a summer top, a length that's around 14 inches from the underarm to the hem, but that's not going to be the same for everybody. So I want to encourage you to go check out episode 13 of this podcast, which I have also linked below. It walks you through all the different lengths from cropped to tunic length and sort of averages on where that will fall on a body. If you like a really cropped summer top, great, knit it to that length, but go check out what length that might be. And if you like a nice long tunic, maybe you want to add some body shaping to it so that you've got an A-line shape, definitely you will find that information in episode 13. Okay, now let's talk about the actual body ease of the garment. So much about designing our own garment is really personal, and I can't tell you what your right fit is going to be, but looking at other designers with similar body shapes or semi-similar body shapes can give you a good idea of what garments with different amounts of ease are going to look like on your frame. I'm going to give you 5 different designers that you can go look at that cover kind of a range of body shapes and sizes. Please understand that I have no favoritism or no preference for any of these designers. They are simply designers whose work I'm familiar with when it comes to the designs on their bodies. I happen to sit right in the middle of what I think of as perhaps a smaller body versus a larger body, and I'll talk a little bit about that in reference to each of these designers. But here are the people that I would recommend looking at that I feel offer a fairly good spectrum of body styles, depending where you fall in the range. So all of these designers' Ravelry profiles are going to be linked in the description below, but let's start with the smaller end of designers. These are people who tend to be narrower in the waist, have a smaller chest circumference, and have narrower hips relative to their chest circumference or their shoulders. If that is your body style, I would recommend checking out Heidi Kermeyer, and I hope I'm saying that last name correctly, or Andrea Mowry. Both of these designers offer different ranges of styles of garment, so you can see what different types of ranges of ease look like on a body. And I'll come back to ease in just a few moments. If you fall into a spectrum similar to me, where I'm quite petite height-wise, but I'm very curvy, and I don't fall into fully plus size, except in some companies, but I'm definitely at the upper range of most commercial size garments. So I'm around a large, extra large, or 1X, depending on who the designer is. The Ravelry designers that I like to look at are Megan Nodecker. She is also known as Pip and Pin on Ravelry, or Samantha, I think it's Guerin, I'm not quite sure. She is Samantha Guerin Designs on Ravelry. Once again, I will have this linked in the description below. Both of these designers offer a wonderful range of garments, again, with some more fitted, some less fitted, so you can see what different amounts of ease look like on a body that I ascribe to looking like me. A little fuller, not fully plus size yet, but definitely not in the small or the medium commercial size garments. And for those of us who are in the larger body size, we would call plus sizes commercially, you just live in a larger, lovely body, I would like to direct you to Jack Cieslak or Cieslak. I'm not sure how they pronounce their name. They have a wonderful range of garments that range from the small end, but are designed by the designer who lives in a larger body. I have knit their Ursa sweater twice and love it, so definitely check them out as a resource for larger bodies. All right, so now that we've talked a little bit about garment styles, let's just cover ease really briefly. I have a full episode on my podcast, episode 1, which is linked below, that talks about ease, positive ease, negative ease. And all that ease means is the difference between the size of the garment going on your body and your actual body measurement. For a summer top, I would say more often than not, you might want to choose a lot of positive ease. It just gives you that floaty look or feel. But if you are someone who likes to wear really fitted garments, even in the summer, then you might consider zero ease or negative ease. When you're looking through those designers' profiles and you click on an image of a garment that they're wearing that you like, check their notes to see if they have a recommended amount of ease in there. Very often you'll see something to the effect of, the designer is wearing this sample with X amount of positive ease or negative ease. That gives you a really good idea of how much oversize or undersize their garment is compared to their body. So let's take a look at my sketch for my garment using my real measurements as opposed to the measurements I hoped they were last week, and just how I will apply that to the garment with the positive ease that I want to have. Please forgive me as we go to this top-down view. My overhead light that I typically use for my top-down camera shots seems to have stopped working this morning. So I'm going to do my best to make sure the lighting is good. I guess I'm going to have to order myself another light, but we will do our best to make sure that this works so we can see everything nice and clearly. So here is a look at my sketch that I shared with you in week 1. However, I hadn't measured my body in a little bit of time, so my body dimensions had changed a little bit. So you're going to see I've got some notes down here and over here about some different dimensions that I was not expecting. So let's talk about how to add the ease to our different body parts. Let's start simply with our chest circumference. This is the basis of the circumference of the garment that we're going to make. I measured mine and it looks like my full chest circumference with the undergarments that I want to wear is 42 1/8 inches. So ideally I would wear a summer top with somewhere between 6 and 8 inches of positive ease. if I said that I wanted 6 inches of positive ease, I would knit around 48 inches, but I do know that I have that 1/8 extra inch in there. So rather than just accept 5 7/8 of an inch, I'm going to make sure that I use the full information that I have and add 6 inches to my 42 1/8 inch. So I've got an updated sketch here, and I'm just going to use this to put my new numbers on. So I've got 42 1/8 inch, and I want 6 inches of positive ease. So I'm going to make my full chest circumference 48 1/8 of an inch. Now, is 1/8 of an inch a big deal? No, not really. But if we're designing this for ourselves, we can choose whatever size we want. So I am going to aim for 48 1/8 of an inch to make sure I get that full positive 6 inches of ease. Now, when it comes to my upper arm circumference, I originally thought that my upper arm was 14 inches and I was going to add an inch, so I had originally designed it to be 15 inches of positive ease. Now that I've done the measurements just like you have, I know that my full upper arm circumference at my current body size is 15 1/4 inches. Because this is a summer top and I want it to fit nice and comfortably, I don't want my sleeves to be tight, I'm going to add a full inch to this measurement. So I'm going to aim for an upper sleeve circumference of 16 1 inches because my upper sleeve is, or my upper arm is 15 1/4 inches plus 1 inch. So I'm going to aim for 16 1/4 inches. That will be the lower arm circumference on my sleeve. The last measurement that I want to talk about, I tried drawing it on here, but I felt like it was getting too muddy, was our yoke depth measurement. In the video that I directed you to, I measured from my high point shoulder to my underarm using that technique and discovered that my upper yoke measurement, when I measure straight down my body, is 6 inches. I also know that I like at least 2 inches of positive ease, if not more, for a nice comfortable yoke depth. So I'm going to be adding 2 3/4 inches to that. I'm just going to draw this out. So we're saying straight out from the bottom of the arm and straight out from the high point shoulder, so we can get the total vertical depth of our yoke. I know that mine is 6 inches when I measure my body straight down. I want to add 2 3/4 inches of ease to that. So my total yoke depth will be 8 3/4 inches. Now, I'm not going to go into the complexities of how these numbers play together this week. We're going to save that for next week when we look at some of our math. But I just wanted to give you a jumping off point for where we're going to be measuring and how to add that ease. How much ease you decide to add to any one of these sections is really going to depend on how you want the garment to fit. That's why looking at the sample designers that I offered a few minutes ago is going to really help you understand how ease relates to the body size. Anywhere between 0 and 6 inches is considered kind of an average or a fitted size. 6 inches and above is considered oversize, and anything below 0 is going to be very fitted. So you need to decide where in that range you feel your body will feel most comfortable. Now, if you decided to measure your hip circumference because you want to have a slightly longer garment and add some A-line shaping to yours, mine will be straight, but be sure to measure your hips at their widest point and add in any ease that you may want to the bottom of the garment too. But I will caution you that the ease that you have in your chest circumference may not be the same relative ease that you want to have at your hips. Because knitted garments are quite loose, if you said I want 8 inches of positive ease at my chest and 8 inches of positive ease at the hem, you may find this flares out more than you want it to. Take off an inch or two from your hip circumference for your bottom side or bottom circumference if you plan to add any waist shaping. I have a difference of, okay, so my chest circumference is 42 inches. My hip circumference is around 53 inches. So I have around 11 inches between my chest circumference and my hip circumference. I am not going to add any waist shaping. I know that with the ease around my body and how I wear my garments, I don't need to add that. Take a look through your closet and decide what you feel best in. If having this A-line shape is going to be really important for you, check out a video that I've linked below that talks about shaping under the arms. I've talked about 2 different methods where you can add shaping to go from a narrower circumference here to a wider circumference at the bottom. There's one last design element that I would like you to take some time with over the next 2 weeks, and that has to do with your neck. Now, I'm going to be doing a crew neck or a rounded neck on mine. You can do a V-neck. You can even do a boat neck, which would mean your front and back of your garment are simply knit straight across. What I would caution you with if you plan to do a boat neck is making sure that the full circumference of your neckline, because when we look at a raglan top down, we've got the back, the front, and the cross shoulder. This is a very rough sketch, but if we say this is the back and this is the front, we want to make sure that the total area of this opening, which looks very square here, but looks far less square on your body, we want to make sure that that circumference is going to be at least 18 inches. Because we have our heads to go over, our neck circumference isn't necessarily 18 inches, but we want to make sure that we can get our head comfortably through this opening. So I would say that the minimum width you would want your front and back necks to be is around 7 inches. Mine will be a little bit wider than that. I'm going for about 7.5 inches, but just keep that measurement in mind as you're going through this design process. Okay, so that is where we're going to wrap it up for week 2. In week 3, which will be in about 2 weeks time, we're going to take our gauge measurements, we're going to weigh our swatch, and we're going to do our math takeoffs for yardage ordering and talk about the numbers, and not even numbers specifically, but design considerations to make the garment the most successful it can be. So come on back in 2 weeks. And of course, if you have questions about anything that was covered in this week's video, feel free to leave a comment below and I will do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks so much for joining me for this second week. I hope you're having fun designing your garment and I look forward to knitting it with you soon.